We're here to interview Phil Klein, a popular Messianic Jewish musician and songwriter. Phil, what was your Jewish background?
Well, I was a grandson of a Orthodox rabbi, and he came over from Kiev with a couple of brothers, and he opened up a regular Orthodox synagogue in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It was called Beth Emmanuel, God is with us. He had a big following in that synagogue, and he did everything on his own. He didn't have all the help in the world. All the people came in was to pray, but he did everything. He was the president. He banged the gavel. He did everything. Bottle washer, dishwasher, and everything. And it was wonderful because he eventually became blind. And he would come over to our house every maybe 3 months, and he'd stay with us. And I could, to this day, see him davening in the living room window when the light came up. And he couldn't see a thing because he was blind. But he knew that Siddur. He knew his prayer book by heart. And I always revered him tremendously.
So you were raised in an Orthodox way?
Initially, that's correct. And when he died, I was about 9 years old. My dad and mom switched over to a conservative place, shul. I think it's because there were too many dishes and things like that, dishes and silverware, and we had to divide the refrigerator, milk stick on one side, and put a barrier between a cardboard barrier. It was crazy. So she decided not to do that anymore, and we went conservative.
What's the short version of how you became a believer?
Short version. How long does that run? About 2 hours? Okay. It was very, very intense because Sheila and I were going together at the time. We weren't married. And one night I was sleeping in my room. I had all my musical equipment in there, a piano up there and everything. Not this piano, but a smaller piano. And I was lying down. I fell asleep. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard a booming voice. Booming. It wasn't, I thought it was out where you are. It wasn't. It was inside of me. And that voice said, "Philip, come to me." Well, I got really excited. I said, what's this? I thought somebody was in the room. So I went to my drawer and I pulled out a 41 Magnum. I don't even think it was loaded. And I was looking around the house to find out where that voice came from. There was nobody there. So I figured, well, it's a bad dream or whatever. The next morning around the same time, "Philip, come to me." And I think my spirit knew that it was real, more surreal, more supernatural. But I didn't know. And I called up Sheila and I said, "Sheila, let's go to that Beth Hillel. You remember you told me there was Jew and Gentile?" Because Sheila was not Jewish. And she decided to come with me on Friday night. We went there, and the sermon was Naaman. Naaman refused to wash in the Jewish river Jordan because he was a Persian. And he finally was talked into it because he had leprosy, physical leprosy. And so he washed in the river 7 times, and he was clean. He came up clean. At that time, that same voice said, "You have spiritual leprosy, and you must wash in the blood of my son to be healed." Right in the synagogue. Nobody heard it but me. And I turned that color. I was pale. And Sheila turned around. She says, "What's wrong?" Nothing. And went on, and the altar call was made. There were 5 guys, including me, Jewish fellas, stood up and accepted the Lord. They are still around today. I just talked to Bruce Casper yesterday on Skype, and he's down in Florida, and at a Messianic synagogue. So all the boys are still Messianic and Jewish, very, very Jewish. And so that's how I first came to him.
Did you play music as a child?
Yeah, my mom took me to a concert, a Betty White concert in the Academy of Music in Brooklyn. Beautiful place. And we sat on the first row in the balcony. And she did all kinds of things for kids. She would do rhythm bands and did Peter and the Wolf, and everybody would play certain parts, and it was great. And my mom turned and asked me, she says, "Would you like to learn how to play piano?" Well, sure. I'd love to. And I really wasn't excited about the playing of the piano, except I wanted to do all the things the kids on this stage wanted to do. But I embraced it. And thank God. God worked with me, in fine-tuning what I had to learn. And I played concerts for quite a number of years. I was in a lot of the halls, Town Hall, Steinway Hall, things like that. Played a thing in Carnegie. But basically, he really didn't, until I was ready, he didn't give me the songs he gave me. I was a songwriter even at age 16. I write things back and forth. Very secular things. But this touch that he gave me was so powerful. And I wrote songs I never would have thought of even coming into my mind.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, what is your first experience playing Messianic Jewish music? What was it?
Well, I went to a Messianic convention. I think they only had one in Atlanta. And it was at a hotel in the Perimeter Mall. And Nagila was up there, and so was the 3 guys, the famous, I can't remember it. But Joel was there, and Trapinski, and all those guys. If you remember the group, you'll let me know, because Anyway, so after the concert, and everybody was packing up, I sat down at the piano, and I started playing. By ear, because I heard them do it. And the leader of Nagila turned quickly. He almost broke his neck. He says, "Who's this?" They've been praying for a piano player for 2 years. Seriously. And here I was. And I started just doing practice sessions with him just to get to know. And I wrote a song, our wedding song, for Sheila and myself. And I wrote a couple other things. I wrote Lord of the World. That was interesting, because Lord of the World, I didn't even know what it meant in Hebrew. I would sing it all the time when I was young. Adon Olam, Hashem Olach, B'Terem Kol, and it was fun. It was a fun song. But God gave me a new version. And I didn't know anything that it was in the Siddur. I didn't know. Rick was the leader at the time, and he said, "That's from the Siddur." I said, "Where?" And he opened it up, and it said, Adon Olam, Lord of the World. And the second verse was just almost exactly what I used. And then I used the chorus in Hebrew. And it was just amazing. Now it's been done. That song has been done probably all over the world.
It's one of my favorite songs, Phil.
Yeah,
Did
thank
know
you.
that?
Oh yes, it's one of my favorite too because it wasn't thought of by me. The Lord just dropped it right there. Wham. Amazing.
So how did you go off on your own as a Messianic musician and songwriter?
Well, in year 2000 or thereabouts, Nagila sort of like separated, each went his own way. Of course, Kevin was studying to be a rabbi. That's what he originally wanted to do. He wanted to get into some kind of business, but he was brought by the Lord, coaxed him along, and he became the rabbi over at Beth Hallel. And Kevin Dangler, who's a guitar player, is a great guitar player, he decided to go a different route. So here I was with all these new songs that I wrote. What am I going to do? I'm not going to throw them out. And I put together a program, and Aliyah Music Ministries was born. And so I have all my songs copywritten under Yeshua Songs, which is the publishing company.
Very good. Now, do you take your lyrics from scripture, or how do you get your ideas on what to write in
Okay.
music and the lyrics?
I am a scribe. I don't consider myself a creative songwriter. I consider myself a conduit. It says that if you keep your conduit clean, God will send you blessings through you to your family. Well, I guess I was clean then. I don't know, but he fed these things to me. I recall there was a song called the Love of God. This fellow who he notified me, he was living in Finland, Russian, and he's a very famous Russian singer, and he sent me. At that time, we didn't have anything like emails. We had fax. This is back in the early 90s. And he faxed me, would you change the words into English words of the song if I give it to you? I said, I'll try. So he sent me a cassette of him in this beautiful fur coat with the what do you call it, the rifle in the back. And all of a sudden I looked at the thing and it was totally in Swedish. I said, I can't do Swedish. I can hardly do English. She's talking about Swedish. So anyway, I sit there and go, what the heck I heard the song. I didn't like the melody that much, but the words intrigued me. And so I sat there for a minute, and all of a sudden I hear this thing welling up in me, this voice welling up in me. It says, get a piece of paper and write down what you hear. Play it again. And I played it again. And believe it or not, it came out English. The song was, it was cold, it was dark, and a world full of hunger, but a light through a door make me want something more. And so I wrote the words out, and I had the words down. And the next day I was watching Rocky IV, I think, that talked about fighting a Russian in Russia. And as this Russian fighter came down the aisle in this big auditorium, they played da 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 da, the Russian national anthem. Well, that originally the words were there, but no longer, because there were words that were against Christians and Jews, and it called for their death. So they eliminated those words for a while. Now they have new words. But anyway, I started to sing. God is the only answer. God's love is so forgiving. And it fit perfectly. And I found out through channels that there were no copyright infringements or whatever, and of course it was open to use, and I got permission to use it, and that's how it all happened. It's amazing. To this day, I don't understand it, but I accept it.
So you're God inspired. You're inspired by God.
Yes.
Yes.
Everything I write comes from Him.
Yes. Well, what's your favorite song that you've written? Do you have a favorite song?
Oh gosh, that'll be longer for me to explain than my testimony. But I have a song that a girl by the name of Helen sent me as a poem. Now, she had stage 4 breast cancer. And she says, Philip, would you see if you can put this into words? Well, I had changed some of the words and changed some of the things to fit the idea of the song, but I did it. And it was called Glory and Honor. And that was all from Helen. She used to be our Ellen. Forgive me, dear. But she passed on, and I was at her funeral, and I sang Glory and Honor to her. And I was driving back to Ethan Allen where I was working. It wasn't too far from the cemetery to Ethan Allen. And I drove, and I almost crashed. I heard, well done, Philip. Just like that. I broke into tears. I pulled in the side of the road. I couldn't do anything for 20 minutes because I was stunned to hear her voice. And I knew she was in the grave. It was unbelievable.
Well, what song helped you in your life and how?
Wow. I think the song, one of them, was absolutely Lord of the World, because that really helped me in my life. It helped the whole ministry move forward. But there was a song called Come Dwell With Me, which is on my newest CD, New Heart. And that was from Psalm 91. That was a piece of that psalm that was never used, being under the Lord's wings and used the shadow of my wings and all that. So you've heard songs like that, but never that verse. And I used that verse, Come Dwell With Me, as the song root. And it came out. That really helped me, because it's like God asking me, hey, you have chores, you have problems, just sit with me and let me heal you. That's probably one of the most poignant songs I've been in contact with.
What advice can you give to a Messianic musician starting out?
Believe. Believe in your relationship with the Lord. Believe in Yeshua. Believe with a passion. Not just, hey, I got a job and I do this and do that. Believe it with a passion. Let that passion create from God. He'll feel that passion too, and He will bless you. Don't think you can do it on your own. You cannot. You've got to walk with your hands in the Lord's. He's got to lead. And humble yourself before God. Lord, may you increase that I may decrease. Once you've established that connection, that He's there and you're here, and that humbling is real, God will bless you. He'll pour things through you. You'll be His conduit. And He'll be your success.
So what's the main message you would want people to know through your music?
The love of God, the glory of God. It's all about Him. It's not about us. We are out of control. He's in control. You know, take a look at this primary season. He's in control. We are not. And I want everybody to understand that we should look to him for more solution for our problems and not look in the mirror, because in the mirror just shows a blank face. There's no answers in the mirror. It's only through the Lord.
Thank you, Phil. It was great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Shalom, Shalom, Yerushalayim. Amen.